Jules, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
Yes.
The buzz is getting so loud it's hard to ignore. According to ESPN sources, Liverpool in advance talks to sign Jeremie Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen. That €35 million clause is pretty appealing. Same position, different style to Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say different positions, to be fair. No, never played that right back this season, really, for Bayer Leverkusen. He was either the wing back or right winger or even a second striker, as we mentioned before. Sometimes probably even as a false number 9 somehow in Xabi Alonso's strange tactical lineups. But he's a great player. If you use him well, I think there's a lot there, a lot of potential. I really don't think he will play right back much, certainly in some games, but he can do a job there, obviously. But I think he brings something very different to Conor Bradley. So it's perfect to have Bradley and Frimpong as kind of replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
So you think he's going to start fit? Because we saw it at, obviously before coming to Liverpool. I mean, this season Liverpool's been pretty much generally bog standard 4-2-3-1, right?
Yeah.
Most of the season. But he certainly got creative before at Feyenoord. Do you think we might see more of that? Or when you say he's not going to play right back, I mean, not even line up.
I guess.
Do you see him as a winger? I guess is what I'm driving.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, certainly higher up the pitch, doing other things.
Liverpool's right winger is pretty good though.
Yeah, it's more, but you could play him inverted left winger as well. For example, it's a bit like the Ding and who signed for
Ian Maatsen.
Ian Maatsen, that's it. Thank you. Who was at Chelsea before. One is very much more of a wing back, and Ding is more of a traditional fullback. And at times, Unai Emery has changed one for the other, and that I think has worked well. But I guess in a back four, you could have Frimpong and right back in some games, especially with Konate next to it, because I think Konate is strong enough physically and quick enough to cover for Frimpong being really, really high up the pitch. So if there's one centre back that is good for Frimpong playing a right back for Liverpool, it's definitely Ibrahima Konate.
Although if the left back ends up being Milos Kerkez, who they've been linked with,
then
you may have a slight issue because those are two very attacking people.
That's true.
And the guy sliding over to Kyver Kerkez would be 35 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Half a dozen clubs were chasing Bournemouth defender Dean Huijsen with his €50 million release clause. Now it seems that Real Madrid are in the driving seat.
Yeah, certainly been reporting. And look, nobody's going to blame him. The dude is Spanish after all, right? Or identifies as Spanish. I think 50 million, it's like, it's almost like a free transfer. Not obviously 50 million is a lot of money, but because there's no negotiation with the club involved, you know exactly where you stand. It's a question of reaching a deal with the player, and you can get these late twists. And like we warned, until Arsenal announced Zubimendi, you always have, for example, that possibility. What happens? Even if a player has agreed. So could this be a hijacking, if you want to call it that? But ultimately, it's like a free transfer in the sense people are willing to pay for you. He gets to go where he wants. Time to check in on Florian Wirtz, Jules. I kind of thought it was Bayern Manchester City race. Now some are reporting Liverpool could be getting involved. You're not buying this, are you?
I mean, I think it would be great. I mean, I think Wirtz would be great anyway. It's very obvious because he's so good. Would Liverpool play 150 million transfer fee?
If you were Liverpool?
I wouldn't know.
No, I don't
Definitely
think so
not.
either.
But it's interesting that if they are really in the conversation, I think it's not bad to be there. But yeah, I think they start way behind Bayern and City already, who've done a lot of discussions already and background work that Liverpool would not have done. So.
And I think the appeal of City to Wirtz is that you can pitch him on saying that we're going to build a team around you. Whereas at Bayern, the question is going to be, how are Jamal and I going to play together?
Yeah.
More Milan, Jules. Manchester City have been strongly linked with Tijjani Reijnders. Does this make sense to you? What's a reasonable fee?
So I think they need somebody like him with all that energy, all that intensity, the verticality that can play in different positions. Where his best position is probably behind the striker. We said it, but he can play in a double pivot too. I think they need somebody like him. But Stevie Nicol last night on the FC show made a really good point. He said Liverpool could do with somebody like him. He would be very good at Liverpool. I agree as well. They bought him for €20 million. They could easily get double for him, if not more, because I think he's at 26. He's an outstanding player, really, that can do a lot of services for your team. So I can definitely see what City are interested in. And if you're Milan, do you have to sell? Do you have to balance your books? If you don't qualify for Champions League, which you won't, do you need to sell? So maybe they will have to sell him.
I mean, they're in a solid position. They've made profit the last couple of years, so I don't think that's the issue. But Reijnders would be interesting. Mark Ogden and I, we did our kind of sort of City keep and dump. What you realize is City have a ton of central midfielders, even with De Bruyne going. So I think they would need to clear some space for Reijnders. I think in a 4-3-3 as an 8 bursting forward, that is his best position. But as you said, Jules, he's done it as a 10. He's done it in a double pivot as well. But yeah, the Tonali history shows that I think if the price is right, they're ready to deal. Jonathan David is leaving Lille as a free agent. Jules, where's a good home for him?
It's a good question, Gab. I think that we've debated enough on what's the ceiling there. How high can he go now? Is he ready now for like a big English club, for example, Liverpool or Arsenal or City? I'm still not sure. I think there's a great player there because he can do everything. Really, he's a good finisher. He sees the game well. He can hold the ball up. He's good technically. He runs. He presses. He's a great guy to have in your dressing room. So there's a lot of really, really good things. But it's a massive step up from Lille and Ligue 1 to any top clubs in England or in Italy or even in Spain. And I don't know if there's something in between maybe because he's only 25 years old, or if he goes straight and we see how he does. As a free agent, he's obviously very appealing. I understand that. And he was not on big money either, like in terms of salaries. I'm really curious to see where he goes. I would think right now I would say he's not going to go to a top European club, but just a level below.
So level below type clubs. Are you including Spurs in the top?
Yeah,
top
so
clubs?
like Tottenham. Yeah, so like Tottenham. I think even Milan, but in the sense that they're still great clubs, but they're not.
He's not going to Real Madrid.
Yeah, not Real Madrid or Liverpool or Bayern Munich and those kind of clubs.
Barcelona on a free.
Given
he presses and he works.
You say that, no, you're right.
And they have no money. I don't know,
because then you can also have him. I think he's a great squad player to have because you're not going to pay anything for him.
If you're Chelsea and you qualify for the Champions League, I know he doesn't fit the bowling model.
No, you're right. Maybe I take it back. So he might end up in a big club. Sorry, after Gab convinced me. But I'm just not sure if he's ready yet to score 25 goals, for example, for Chelsea in the Premier League or for City or Spurs. That's where I'm waiting to see a bit more.
Bayern will make an offer for Jonathan Tah this week. They've prepared the offer, say the insiders in the Sabener Strasse. This is a no-brainer, right? But if you were Jonathan Tah, would you be looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I guess so. But again, his dream might be to play for Bayern Munich, which is obviously the biggest club in Germany. He might really, really fancy that, working with company, being there. If Wirtz goes to, there's Musiala, there's a lot of people, a lot of players that he knows, that he might be really tempted, want to play with them. I still think that if a top English club comes, what about if Real Madrid comes to have him as a squad player, for example, or potentially starting some games, etc., would you not be tempted? I don't know. I think he's got his name written at Bayern, and that deal will happen. And then
he does. The only thing I would caution about this, and look, he's already playing for a manager who likes to have his guys on the ball and whatever else. The only thing I would caution about this is I think Bayern are going to have to go into sort of a mini rebuild because there's a lot of positions that need strengthening. And the Upamecano, Kim, those are the guys going to be playing with. They're exposed a lot in the way company plays. And obviously, that's something that he had a little bit at Leverkusen and then less so as it went on. You may just want to think about it, but yeah, if you don't want to move to a different country, sure, you'll make a lot of money at Bayern and you'll win titles.
With Xabi Alonso moving on, Bayer Leverkusen need a new boss. Obviously, early names out there are Cesc Fabregas, we mentioned a bit earlier, and our friend Erik ten Hag. Can you imagine?
Should I bother asking you who you would pick out of the two?
You can. You know my answer.
Yeah.
I think I know your answer too.
Yeah, I think we'd both be. The only thing with Cesc is the Como are convinced that Cesc is going to stay. Obviously, Como have extremely wealthy owners, and they're willing to spend money, and they finish mid-table. I think Milan are going to take a very long, hard look at Cesc as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I heard him talk on
Sky Italia last week. It was brilliant, wasn't it?
You watched that too?
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Really good. And his Italian is just perfect. I was like, wow, man.
Wait, it's been 2 years.
I know,
Spanish.
but
and also, he's smart. He's like a clever guy.
I know, but still, I was so impressed.
But he, I think if they're going to continue to get the backing, and look, at some point, if they qualify for Europe, there might be an issue there.
Yeah.
but there's no reason he couldn't take a run at the Champions League or Europa League next year with this Como team if he keeps hanging on to the players he does. So that may be more appealing than a Bayer Leverkusen rebuild if you're Cesc. Whereas if you're Erik ten Hag, different story.
Como want to make Maximo Perrone's deal from Manchester City permanent. They've offered £12 million. City won £30 million. Gab, is it all that?
There's a big difference in price here. I think
Cesc is very impressed in that Sky Italia. He talks about him in that interview and he said like he can do everything. I love him. I've got so much time for him.
Yeah,
30 million.
All right, since we've gone back to Cesc, we should put a Cesc pearl of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Because they asked him, and on this thing, like he's not being interviewed by a civilian. He's being interviewed by a lot of really important ex-players, and he said something about when do you want your player to follow your instructions? Because he said something like, well, I don't want players just to follow my instructions. I give them concept. I want them to be making the decisions.
Yeah.
And then he said, like, but then what's the point of having a coach out there? And he says, well, okay, me amend that. They can make their own decisions in certain areas of the pitch. Cesc says, sometimes some of my players see passes, see opportunities that I could have never imagined. Because when you're on the pitch, you see the pitch, you see it differently. That level of humility from a coach, because a lot of coaches just say lip service, like, oh yeah, the players make the decisions, fantastic, my players are fantastic. But that level of humility from a guy who on the pitch could see more than most other people, I thought was pretty remarkable. But yeah, going back to Perrone, they have the option to extend the deal another year. So if City don't take 12 million, then Como might just say, all right, no, fine, we'll take him for another season. And I think that's what they're planning. I don't know. In our City Keeping Dunk, Ogden and I argue that I think City should try to get Perrone back, have him play at the Club World Cup, perhaps, and then maybe you can send him back to Como for another year. Work it out, but let Pep have a good, long, hard look at it because he can give you some things which I think are different from the players you have, and he has a lot more energy because City's midfield, is packed with older players. Bernardo Silva's 30, Kovacic is 31. Gundogan, who somehow wangled the extension who managed to trigger it with his appearances, is 72, something like that. Yeah. Like, you can use some of that energy.
Angel Correa is reportedly leaving Atletico Madrid this summer to join Tigres in Mexico in a €6 million deal. Gab, I know you're going to miss him.
I am going to miss him, but I've got the only living sword lost in captivity now to keep me warm.
You don't think he could have found a European club instead of going to Liga MX?
I think he could have. I think my understanding is he's getting really good personal terms. And I think from his perspective, I mean, this is a guy who's really attached to Atletico Madrid. And I think he saw also with the emergence of Julien, who's played on the wing a lot, but might be occasionally play more central at some point. I think he saw his minutes kind of in jeopardy, especially if Griezmann ends up sticking around as well. Yeah. He doesn't want to be number 4, and that's understandable at this stage of his career.